This 20-inch bandsaw is the biggest one I've built, and I want to build a bigger one. And the wheels on this one at 20 inches are actually already quite heavy, so I've got an idea for making these hollow. I have to divide that circle into 12 equal parts for the internal spokes. These pieces are going to form the outer rim of the bandsaw wheel. After gluing on the rim, I glued in the spokes, but that was a little bit tedious. For the second wheel, I glued the spokes on first and then the rim segments, and that was much easier. And just doing a little bit of approximate balancing on the wheel before I close it up. I'll need these holes through the wheels for mounting the flanges later, and I'll drill them now while it's still open, otherwise I might not hit the spokes when I drill them. These circles I'm drawing now will come in really handy later. Messy. Seems like I need some longer long reach clamps, but I'll just weigh it down in the middle because I can't reach that. Next thing I need to do is to mount the bearings in the bearing flanges like I have here, and these need to be in there really tight because you've got the whole tension of the blade pulling down on it, and as this turns it keeps pulling in different directions, so it's like trying to wiggle this thing loose. So if it's not in there really tight, it will come out. I'm using my vise to press that bearing in because it's really hard to get in, and the vise can't push in the middle, so I have to keep changing the angle to get it in there evenly, and I'll press until it's flush with the other side. Looks like it runs true enough. Now I need to glue this flange on here, and that needs to be exactly in the center of the wheel, and that's tricky, but I drew some circles before I did all this other stuff. So now I just fasten a compass to this bearing here, and then I can use that point here to trace the circle to see if I'm centered and get that to within a fraction of a millimeter. I'm pretty happy with that. Those 4 screws are not for holding it down, they're just for recapturing that exact alignment. So I'm really pleased with this in that it doesn't wobble side to side very much, even though it's only on one bearing. Awesome. I put the axle through the other bearing to help me position this part here, and then the bearing flange goes on here. The second flange on this wheel is only held by friction, and I'll tweak that center of it once it's on the axle. I've got about 5 millimeters worth of side-to-side wobble, so I'll need to adjust that flange. Well, I think this amount of side-to-side wobble is as good as I'm going to get. Now to put in some screws so I can get that position back once there's glue in it. And now with glue, it wobbles a bit more than it did before, so I have to recenter that flange. I got about 1 millimeter of wobble now, slightly worse than before, but I'll have to live with it. Alright, this is the top wheel without the extra spacer to make the flanges further apart. And I got this one even closer than the other one. Next step is making a drive pulley so I can spin the wheels with a motor. Now I have to cut the V-groove in the pulley, and in the past I've used my table saw, but this time I'm going to use my new router table with a slot cutting bit. Now I've tilted the router back a little bit to put this at an angle to make that into a tapered groove for the V-belt. Now with the main pulley made, I gotta figure out what size V-belt I'm gonna need. 72 inches. I'm just temporarily attaching that pulley right now for turning the wheels. Got it ready to lay down those wheels to true them with a motor. I'm checking the size by measuring the circumference, and I have to actually turn off quite a bit because I left too much margin. So this is the size that I actually need, so I have to turn off quite a bit off of here. So this is looking pretty true as far as the naked eye goes, but if I put a dial indicator on it, you can see it jumps around quite a bit, back and forth by at least 5 thou. And that's because this wood, when I'm going out of the grain, it cuts differently from going into the grain while I'm turning it. That's much better. Here's the wheel I just turned, and the unturned wheel behind it. There's quite a bit I ended up taking off. I think I'll bandsaw the next one down first. Second wheel is turned, and I think I did a little bit better on this one. So for the bandsaw tire, I'm using a 20-inch long inner tube, quite a bit shorter than the circumference of the wheels. And this is one of those, and this one I've already cut open and removed the chalky stuff from the inside as best as I could. And the way I mount that on the wheel is by stretching it across and clamping it on opposite sides, then clamping it on the corner point and then stretching it over. And that way I don't have any areas that are overly stretched compared to other areas. Got that tweaked now, so the blade should be tracking correctly. Let's see. There. Now I just need to build the rest of the bandsaw.